We spoke to a writer in Tel Aviv who's been writing quite a bit in Haaretz and other publications.
This is March 1st.
March 1st, I guess at the beginning of this month. And we're going to be speaking to him tomorrow as well. At that point, which had been ongoing protests on the weekends. And understand, this is a country of about 9 million people. And really, I mean, a third of whom barely have, full citizenship, even when they theoretically do. The idea of a couple 100,000, or like what we saw over the weekend, over 500,000 people protesting would be the equivalent of somewhere between like 5 and 18 million people protesting in this country. There were reports of military personnel, a lot of jet fighters, and the jet fighters to Israel are incredibly important. Basically telling their commanders, I'm prepared to resign because I'm not fighting for a dictatorship. The defense minister was fired when he said he could not support Netanyahu's power grab. The consul general in New York resigned. There were other people who resigned in Israel.
There's a general strike announcement, right?
Yeah, universities canceled classes, and this is just here. This is the image of the police chief in Tel Aviv marching with protesters. Go ahead. Let's play this other clip we have, too, of Israeli police using water cannons on protesters as they took to the streets in Tel Aviv.
Al Jazeera put this kind of compilation of that footage together.
Take a look at this. There it is. Now, that's an Al Jazeera compilation. What you did not see is people being shot with rubber bullets or actual bullets, which you would have seen were they Palestinians protesting. One of the things that we talked about with Marin Rappaport at the time, or back on March 1st, and we will discuss with him too, is his argument was that if the Israeli left understood that they had common cause with the with Israeli Arabs and Palestinians, the left would be big enough to defeat the growing conservative movement in Israel, which is I wouldn't know exactly how to characterize it, but it's clearly the majority in that country, and a very conservative conservatism. And
fascism too. I mean,
without a doubt,
it's incredible to see that. First of all, great job protesting, but as you say, without a broader view of the way that the Israeli government is constructed around democracy for me, not for thee, Palestinians, fascism for thee, not for me.
That's the weird thing about the whole thing.
There's this cognitive dissonance where they can get to the streets in millions and then yet be so united and have the left be so marginal, speaking out against the cultural genocide or the apartheid of the Palestinians, that's disturbing.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But that's something that we'll talk about with Marin Rappaport.
It just goes
tomorrow.
to show how much dehumanization has gone into this anti-Palestinian narrative for decades, because like that's the only thing that can explain that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, it really is stunning to watch. What again would be the equivalent of 18 million people come out on a weekend, and they've been doing this for weekends and weekends. I mean, not that many people, but close. And yet it is there's that sensitivity to the idea of losing a democracy, but they can't quite see the sort of like the other steps. You don't just show up here.
Yeah.
And particularly with the history of Jews having seen, like, you should really pay attention to the canaries in the coal mines, as it were.
Right. And the fact that if you structure a government in this way, it's always going to come back. Fascism will always come home. You can't exert it on the rest of the Palestinian population, not expect it to be turned on you.
And we will talk about that, theme of canaries in the coal mines with Jeff Charlotte about his book, The Undertow: Scenes from a Slow Civil War, in just a moment.